Hello, friends. Welcome to the April 19th, 2024 edition of CP Sports. As always, I'm your host, Chris. Now, last week, it looked like we would see two California teams face off, which we did, but it was Sacramento versus Golden State instead of the Lakers taking on the Warriors. And we possibly saw the end of a dynasty as Keegan Murray hit 32 points, with Darren Fox adding 24 to close the doors on the Warriors season 118-94, marking the third time in the past 5 years Golden State missed the playoffs due to a loss in the play-in. Sacramento had a taste of the playoffs themselves last season for the first time in 16 years, and they just couldn't get enough. So now they go on to play a Zion-less Pelicans for the final spot in the playoffs. If it wasn't for Zion Williamson going down at the end of the half, we could have seen another California showdown as the Lakers couldn't stop him until he went down after tying the game with only 3 minutes and 19 seconds to go. Now, despite Williamson's dominant performance, putting up 40 points with 11 rebounds and 5 assists, the Pelicans just couldn't pull it off without him as they lost 110-106, with the Lakers advancing to the playoffs against Denver. Zion has now been diagnosed with a left hamstring strain and will be re-examined in approximately 2 weeks. This means if New Orleans can get past Sacramento, Zion could possibly be out for the majority of their possible series with OKC. In the East, the 76ers barely skated by the Heat as Joel Embiid led his team to victory, making 23 points with 15 rebounds and 1 massive assist to Kelly, who hit the go-ahead three-point play, defeating Miami 105-104, going on to play the Knicks. Things may have gone differently, though, had it not been for Jimmy Butler being slowed down by a knee injury in the end of the first quarter. Butler is now expected to miss several weeks with a right MCL injury. The Heat will also be missing Terry Rozier due to a strained neck as their season is on the line against the Bulls, who knocked the Hawks out of contention. Chicago's triple threat took command of the game, with Kobe White hitting a career high of 42 points, 9 rebounds, and 9 assists, while Nikola sank 24 with 12 rebounds, and DeRozan added 22 with 9 assists, eliminating the Hawks 131-116. Whoever wins goes on to face Boston in the first round of the playoffs, which you would expect it to be the Bulls with how good they've been playing lately, plus the Heat are dealing with injuries. I don't know, it just doesn't look good for Miami. As for the remainder of the playoff picture, it'll be the Clippers against the Mavs and the Timberwolves versus the Suns in the West. The Cavs will go against Orlando and the Bucks will battle it out with the Pacers in the East. Speaking of playoffs and the East, the NHL Eastern Conference matchups are set with the New York Rangers versus the Washington Capitals. The Florida Panthers take on their neighbors in the Tampa Bay Lightning. The Boston Bruins face off against the Toronto Maple Leafs, and Carolina will go up against New York. The Western Conference only has 2 series set, with the Winnipeg Jets against Colorado Avalanche and the Vancouver Canucks versus the Nashville Predators. Both the Dallas Stars and Edmonton Oilers are set to either face LA or Vegas. The Stanley Cup playoffs start this Saturday, kicking off the postseason with the Islanders and the Hurricanes at 4 p.m., plus the Leafs and Bruins at 7 p.m. From the postseason to the offseason, the NFL draft is on the horizon, and after a successful draft last year, Houston may be looking to work on their defense. It was hit or miss with the defense last season, with the secondary being probably the most inconsistent. Jalen Petrie saw some regression last season without a single pick as opposed to his season prior where he had 5. Jimmy Ward brought some much needed change, but he only played 10 games, finishing the season on IR due to nagging hip, hamstring, and shoulder injuries. Houston signed CJ Henderson to replace Steven Nelson, who was their second in interceptions last year, and also added Jeff Okuda. Both men from our former 2020 top 10 draft picks with a huge promise, but Houston will be their third team. Derek Stingley Jr. led the team with 5 interceptions, tying for 4th in the NFL. He, along with Petrie and Mike Ford, are the only defensive backs under contract after this upcoming season. Houston also lost defensive tackle Sheldon Rankins after the Bengals picked him up in free agency, and Malik Collins was traded to the 49ers for a 7th round pick. The Texans did add Danico Autry on a 2-year deal. However, 4 of their defensive tackles are on a 1-year deal. Despite having an NFL best 7 interceptions on pass attempts over 20 yards, the Texans still allowed the 3rd most yards in those situations, with the 6th most touchdowns and the 8th highest completion percentage. With D'Amico Ryan's so-called sweet spot in the 2nd round, Houston can still pick up some promising talent with 3 picks in the top 100. The NFL draft takes place from the 25th to the 27th in Detroit. After being one of the last teams to tap into free agency by adding Eric Kendricks a month ago, the Cowboys finally made another move in free agency, adding running back Royce Freeman, who had 319 yards with 77 carries and 2 touchdowns last season with the Rams. Although he had that, he still hasn't surpassed his best with more than 521 yards or over 132 carries, which came from his first 2 seasons with the Broncos. Freeman also had 2 short stints with Carolina and Houston, and while bringing experience and size to the ranks, Dallas will still need a lead running back. Speaking of Texas teams, the Astros had the last laugh against the Rangers as they won their last series, putting them a game over in the Texas rivalry. They go on to face Washington with a returning Justin Verlander after losing 3 straight to Atlanta. The Rangers will try their own hand against the Braves themselves after winning 3 of their last 4 series against the Tigers. The Astros 3-game series starts today at 5:45 p.m., while you can catch the Rangers on Apple TV Plus at 6:20 p.m. Atlanta and Texas will also air on Sunday at 6 p.m. on ESPN. The Astros' next game to air on TV isn't until Tuesday on TBS against the Cubs. On the topic of returns, there has been huge speculation on the return of Uncle Howdy, as we've seen many teases on Raw and SmackDown. His return could mark the return of many other talents, as people speculate who will be in the Wyatt Six, one of which could be Broken Matt Hardy, as he left many wondering with his videos and posts on social media. On the Extreme Life of Matt Hardy podcast, Hardy confirmed he has been in talks with WWE, but on top of that, he's been speaking with AEW constantly, along with several other people across different platforms, going on to say, quote, "The next few weeks are going to be fun. As I said before, I think we're getting to a point where we're going to do some pretty cool stuff coming up," end quote. Now, if the Wyatt Six is the route they go, we could expect a return from Rowan, Strowman, and possibly Alexa Bliss, but we'll have to wait and see if that comes to fruition and who the other 2 might be. Speaking of returns, since we're still on the topic, Sheamus made his return on Raw this week, 2 months after almost retiring. But it was a different Sheamus than what we're used to. He wasn't as jacked as everybody remembers, which comes with the territory of being out of action for so long, and the internet trolls in the wrestling community just went in. The ridicule didn't fall on deaf ears though, as Sheamus replied on X stating, quote, okay, Take your best shots. Wellness, too many pies, etc. And then we're done with the photoshopping and shaming. I was aiming for the draft and got an early call-up. My bad, on me. Been sleeping in the gym ever since. So, watch this space fist emoji. I appreciate the love too. Hashtag Shamus. End quote. And as we see many returns on the horizon, we may see an exit soon as AJ Styles talked about winding down his career with the Ringer. Yeah, the Ringer. He talked to the Ringer, going on to say, "I'm done," or quote, "I'm done. I'm going to retire. I'm getting to that point where I'm worried about embarrassing myself. My brain says we can do this. My body is like, you're stupid. We cannot do this. We're hurting every day when we roll out of bed. At some point, this has to come to an end." End quote. Now, last Friday, we saw the debut of Styles' former Bullet Club stablemate Tama Tonga, who showed up to take out Jimmy after his loss to Jay at WrestleMania. Everything was set in motion by Solo Sikoa in great cinematic fashion that just added to the anticipation. It should also be noted that former MLW heavyweight champion Jacob Fatu signed with the company ahead of Mania, so we may see him thrust into the Bloodline story as well. It also has been reported that Roman Reigns will be off TV for an indefinite period, but he'll still have creative input for the direction of their storyline for the next few months. Another person that's going to be off TV due to an injury this time is Rhea Ripley. Rhea injured her AC joint and had to vacate the Women's World Championship. Rhea's brawl with Liv in the back is said to be when the injury happened, giving Ripley a nice little rivalry to come back to, but her possible return period is still yet to be confirmed. It just depends on if she'll require surgery or how long the physical therapy process will be. We might see a debut at TNA Rebellion this Saturday, as they generated a little bit of buzz teasing a debut, quote unquote, when the lights go out. TNA had a press conference for the event, which ended with a Wyatt-esque video complete with static, macabre imagery, eerie woods silhouettes, and it even had a lantern pop up for a split second. Obviously, it's not Bo or Uncle Howdy, if you want to call him that, but they did take some inspiration from the Wyatt and Howdy videos, it seems. I think I saw possibly the Motor City Machine Guns Skull and Crossbones. I'm not sure if that was it, but it looked like it to me. So at some point, maybe we'll see them come back and take on a darker gimmick. I'm not sure, but the video showed 4 silhouettes standing together, so I would think it's a faction of some sort. Something in my head keeps telling me Eric Young, but we'll just have to see and tune in to Rebellion to find out. And that is all we have for today's episode. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend and stay safe. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time, for CP Sports, I'm Chris.